The honourable member for Long Range Mountain.
Hear, hear.
Mr. Speaker, it's a great honour and immense privilege to rise in this chamber as the elected Member of Parliament for Long Range Mountains. It's a region of breathtaking beauty, but also unwavering resilience. And I repeat this morning that I stand not only as a representative of my constituents, but as the first Conservative woman ever elected in the history of Newfoundland and Labrador. And Mr. Speaker, I say that again not for my own sake, but for what it means to so many others. As a mother of 4 with 3 daughters, I think of them in this moment. I think of all the young women across Newfoundland and Labrador in small towns and coastal communities who are watching our politics, and they are wondering if there is a place for them here. Well, my message to them is clear. Yes, there is. You belong here. This chamber needs your voice. Our country needs your leadership, and I hope my presence here opens the door just a little wider for each and every one of you. Mr. Speaker, this historic opportunity is also one rooted in legacy. Newfoundlanders and Labradorians have always had a fierce sense of place and pride. We also know that Ottawa can feel far away, not just in geography, but in priorities. The last Conservative to represent the majority of Long Range Mountains riding as it looks today in this House was Jack Marshall, a man of great integrity, compassion, and conviction. He once said, "The voice of Newfoundland must never be quiet in Ottawa." And those words still ring true today. I intend to raise that voice clearly, consistently, and passionately every day I serve here. And I will do so with the full weight of responsibility that comes with representing the people of Long Range Mountains. But let me say this, Mr. Speaker, I didn't get here alone. No one does. I want to thank the incredible team of volunteers who gave everything they had to our campaign. You knocked on doors regardless of the weather conditions, drove long distances, and brought joy and purpose to every single moment of this journey. But it was your belief in me that made all of the difference. I bring with me not just a Conservative voice, but a mother's voice, a rural voice, and a Newfoundlander's voice. My riding spans from the tip of the Great Northern Peninsula all the way down to Port aux Basques, and it's home to some of the most beautiful rural communities in this country. Places like the Beaches, Burnt Islands, Reedville, Bird Cove, Conch, and Hawke's Bay. These communities are proud, resilient, and full of heart, but far too many of them are facing decline. We see it in the closed-up fish plants, the boarded-up abandoned businesses, and the crumbling roads. We feel it in the rising cost of living, fewer kids in the schools, and fewer young families putting down roots. We hear it in the voices of residents who are worried about the future of their communities. The heart of the communities is still strong, but the next generation is slipping away. There were so many memorable moments during my campaign that I will never forget. One day while in Port Saunders, I spoke with a young man who was a harvester with the 4R shrimp fleet. Mr. Speaker, he's poured his heart and future into the fishing industry. And he shared his frustrations with policies that made no sense to someone who actually works on the water. He said something that struck me. He said, "I need you to do more than hear me. I need you to really feel what I'm going through." What he was really saying, Mr. Speaker, is that his voice, like so many in our coastal communities, is falling on deaf ears. He's not being heard, and he's certainly not being understood.
Shame.
And he's right. To truly represent him, I can't just listen. I have to understand the weight of what he's carrying and bring that into this House with the urgency and respect that it deserves. However, Mr. Speaker, in light of all of these frustrations, I come to this House with hope for a better future, and a deep belief in what Newfoundland and Labrador can become. Mr. Speaker, we have what it takes to build a province that is affordable and self-reliant.
Yes.
A province where families aren't forced to build a life. A province that stands tall on its own 2 feet.
That is right.
And the opportunities are right in front of us, especially in our natural resource sector.
Yes. Hear, hear.
From our offshore energy, our forestry, our mining opportunities, and our fisheries. We are rich in potential, but that potential must be harnessed in a way that puts our people first, creates jobs at home, and keeps the benefits in Newfoundland and Labrador where they belong.
Right on.
Throughout my career in real estate, I've seen firsthand the growing pressure on supply in our housing market, leading to higher prices, especially in places like Corner Brook. And as prices go up, Mr. Speaker, young families are being pushed out. What we need is a government focused on policy that brings costs down so construction can be fired up. We have the skills, we have the tradespeople, and we have the communities ready to grow. But we need federal policies that make it easier to build, not harder. In Newfoundland and Labrador, that means policy focused on rebuilding our rural communities, certainly not writing them off. And that's how we create homes, create jobs, and create hope.
Here, here.
Mr. Speaker, at this time, instead of more of the same, we need change. We also need smart, common sense leadership that unlocks opportunities, leadership of vision and commitment. It's time for policies that reflect the strength and resilience of our people, and that give our young people a reason to stay, build, and thrive at home. Newfoundland and Labrador does not need to be managed by more control from Ottawa.
That is right, exactly.
We need leadership that unburdens our hardworking people so they can go further and reach higher.
Yes.
We need the people of Newfoundland and Labrador to have the opportunities to stay in the communities they love. Recently, I had the immense privilege of returning to my old high school, not just as a former student, but as a mom playing volleyball with my own kids in the same gym I grew up in. And every time I walk those halls, I see the graduation photos of past years. I see the faces of people who were once full of hope for the future. And I know how many of them had to move away to Fort McMurray, to Ontario, to the mainland, in search of jobs and opportunities that simply weren't available back home. That's a loss, not just for their families, but for our province. This has given me perspective on the deep privilege it is to live in my home community. And Mr. Speaker, I want that for all of the young people living in my riding and in Newfoundland and Labrador. We can build an economy that allows our children to grow up and stay close to the communities they love. We can ensure that no one is forced to choose between opportunity and hope. Mr. Speaker, I didn't run because I thought it would be easy. I ran because it's necessary. And as a conservative, I believe in unlocking the immense potential in the communities in my riding. I believe in responsibility. I believe in hard work. I also believe in community. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, to my family, especially my husband, Dwayne, and our 4 children, Bree, Paige, Emma, and William, thank you for your patience, your support, and your sacrifices. Because as many working mothers know, the balance isn't always easy. People often ask me, how will you manage a political career?
Unfortunately, it's a lovely sentiment that the member is expressing, and I really dislike interrupting for that reason, but we're way over time, so we'll have to go to questions and comments. L'honorable député.
The honourable member for Bourassa. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It's with deep emotion and pleasure that I rise today for the first time as the representative for the riding of Bourassa. First, before I start, I'd like to thank my family who has always supported me with great love. And also I'd like to thank my volunteers who've given of their time, their family time, to help my campaign to be a success. And today, since this is my first speech in the House, I would like to reply to things I've heard today. Before I do so, I would simply like to congratulate women because they do excellent work here in the chamber as electives. They really are interested in politics and they work hard. So I'd like to talk about accelerating construction. The member, I know this is a new member, but I'd like to remind him that he has to speak through the chair, through the speaker. The member, the opposition should be ready to be working with the government because we would like to implement measures that can facilitate their work.
Mr. Speaker, if I may, the people of Long Range Mountains have waited a very long time for their voices to be heard in this House, and I feel a deep responsibility to finish what I started. They deserve to hear, this House deserves to hear the stories that they have passed along to me, because they're stories not just of struggle, they're stories of strength, perseverance, and quiet determination. They're stories that have stayed with me, that guide me, and I believe they deserve to be heard on record in this Parliament. Quickly, if I may, Mr. Speaker.
Answer to the question is this? It is, yeah. Because time is really moving along. So we have to be succinct in our questions, in our comments. I know there are many new members. I was a new member myself, but please be succinct. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
One day I traveled to Ramia by ferry to visit my friend Michaela in her hometown, a small, proud, and beautiful community. Michaela is a courageous young woman that lost her mom at an early age and wants nothing more than to stay in the place she grew up.
Not sound like an answer to a question. I'm sorry. We'll have to go now. To l'honorable.
The honourable member for Drummond. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to congratulate my colleague who is newly elected for his speech, his first speech. And I remember this is very emotional. And I remember also having mentioned, having thanked members of my family. So I understand how emotional that colleague is. But the current debate on the sub-amendment from the bloc and also on the Conservative amendment, well, I'd just like to insist on the fact that we have to respect provincial jurisdiction. And I'd like to remind my colleague, if they'd like to finish their speech, will their party support the idea that the federal government must systematically and unconditionally respect at all times Quebec and provincial jurisdiction?
For long-range mountains.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Speaker, there's Hunter from Portachois, not old enough to vote, but I promise you he has more civic spirit than most adults. He worked hard on the campaign because, Mr. Speaker, he believes in change.
In all fairness to the honourable member, we are not replying to the question about jurisdictions.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah.
Point of order. Point of order.
Member for Battle River Crowfoot, yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And certainly, I know myself and many of my colleagues want to hear the very important words that this new member from Newfoundland has to share. And there's a reason why it is called questions and comments. The questions, certainly there is latitude given in the questions. As Mr. Speaker, I hope you will ensure that there is latitude given in the response that certainly fits with the context of not only what this member's speech was, but the overall context for what the speech from the...
I understand the honourable member. It sounded to me, to my ear, it sounded like a continuation of the member's speech. So, anyway, yes, but it should be in relation to the question in some way. Okay. Yeah, I get your point, but let's be brief, everybody, because we have to be brief if we want to get at least 3-4 questions in a 5-minute section.
The honourable member for Drummond. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On this point of order, I agree that we want to hear and give people the opportunity, new members the opportunity, and to complete their speeches. Yet, there is still something that is parliamentary privilege. And when members ask a question, they can hope to have an answer to their questions. I have no problem hearing the member's speech, but she could continue it at another occasion. Right now, we need to respond to questions, and questions deserve answers. And the official opposition shouldn't be doing like the government usually does and not answer questions asked by members.
Sherwood Forest, Fort Saskatchewan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We frequently have reason to object to the responses we receive from seasoned government ministers. The fact that we ask questions in this House and government ministers who have been elected for a very long time stand up and say things that have absolutely no relationship to the topic or the question being asked. So I find it a little bit surprising that we see kind of a new standard being invented in relation to questions and comments for a new member that is not being applied to ministers of the Crown. If you wish to require ministers of the Crown to answer questions from the opposition, though, I think that would be great, and I would look forward to it.
Yes, the member for Battle River Crowfoot. The member for Battle River Crowfoot. Let's be succinct, though.
I trust that people will get to know this riding very, very well over this Parliament. Mr. Speaker, I would simply ask a fantastic new colleague from Newfoundland if she has any final comments she'd like to put on the record for her constituents that she stands for in this place.
Mr. Speaker, respectfully, I guess this is my whole point. The voices of the people of Long Range Mountains haven't been heard in this House for a very long time. I was given opportunity. It's very important to them. They feel forgotten about and left behind in the rural communities because of this Liberal government. And I wanted to take opportunity because respectfully, Mr. Speaker, they put me here and I will always speak for them. Thank you.
The honourable member for Drummond. I'm not talking about the same point of order, but there is something we all have to remember. It's our duty to respect the security of the interpreters. My colleague was really hitting the microphone, and it is dangerous for the health of our interpreters who have to do their work with headphones on. So I'd like to remind everyone that microphones are very visible now, and we should be careful not to manipulate them or hit anything against them. The honourable member raises a very important point. Often when I would speak, I would hit the desk, and it's not healthy for our interpreters.
For Courtney Alberni.
First, I want to acknowledge my colleague and congratulate her on her election. But Mr. Speaker, I want to highlight something that's happening in the fish industry and something that she'd be concerned about, I bet, if this was happening in Newfoundland. Right now in British Columbia, harvesters are being displaced by foreign acquisition of Canada's commercial fishing licenses and quotas. And right now, Canada doesn't currently have any limitations on foreign ownership or commercial fishing licenses and quotas in the Pacific region. This is impacting the livelihood of small operators, and this is a practice only on the West Coast, Mr. Speaker. So through you to my colleague, I'd like to ask her, how would Newfoundlanders react if foreign owners were allowed to acquire licenses and they didn't even have to fish it, Mr. Speaker, something that this government, this Liberal government, has failed to address?
Very short response because we're well over time. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I will always speak for the fish harvesters in my riding. There's lots of coastal communities. It's a very important industry. So thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will always represent them fairly and respectfully.
Great job. Great job. Great job.